they call Leelanau.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Your roll call.
Drain Commissioner Steve Christensen,
Present.
Road Commissioner Garth Greenan, Commissioner Campbell Ross,
Present.
Richard Thompson,
Present.
and Drew Warner.
Present.
All present.
Thank you. Okay. Approval of agenda, late additions or deletions.
I'll move we approve the agenda as shown.
Support?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. We have an agenda. Public comment. Seeing none, hearing none. We have a few minutes before the beta bus rolls in. So I guess we can start with our action items. Yeah, the review of the Leland Dam engaged sites, that'll be with the beta bus. And then we have a laundry list of items that we'll be seeing, the Leland Dam control room. We can get a peek at the roof, look inside. Staff gauge at the Leelanau Narrows. I brought my binoculars. I believe what we'll do is swing into the parking lot at the winery there,
Boathouse?
boathouse, and then walk up along the guardrail along 204, and then we'll be able to look down in and see where that gauge is. And getting to it is a bit of a goat trail going down. There is potential of cutting from the parking lot across the boathouse property. That would require us getting permission for them if someone was there. If not, we'd have to wait for them or call ahead and that kind of thing. But I have binoculars, and I think understanding where it is and how it's attached is the important part of that. And then off to Birch Point Road, and Rick made contact with the owner who was coming in yesterday
Great.
from California. So ideally we'll get to meet that person today. If not, we do have permission to go and take a look at the site. So we'll have all of the important sites viewed.
Will Jerry or Scott be with us, or Dwayne?
Jerry is there
Okay.
at the dam. So he's waiting for us. I don't know if anybody looked at the levels. I looked this morning, and the sensors from the dam and the Narrows are very close together on the reading, and they're both well within the 2-inch interval of court order. So we should see that when we get there. And we'll get an idea what it looks like at the Narrows with that extra water being carried in the system. The staff gauge, it'll be interesting. We did last year. We calibrated the sensor at the Narrows, and is very accurate at that point in time, and I am assuming it hasn't changed much since then. So that sensor is on. And the whole discussion about sensors and what we do is an open topic. Once we get back, we could kind of arm wrestle over that and see where we're going. The staff gauge at the Narrows, I've talked with Jerry some, and he's a little unsure as to whether or not in-house staff can do the appropriate removal and replacement of the staff gauge. So we have to get at that topic and talk about it and strategize as to what we need to do to make sure it's right. Because once we go after that, we have to, it has to get attached exactly right. So there's a little bit of expertise that's needed, and whether or not we're in-house or not is the question, I guess.
I think in order to set the elevations accurately, we would need to have a surveyor, or at least a benchmark located on site so we can identify the correct elevation.
Yes. I was thinking about it. It's probably, we probably should have that benchmark set before we go to do the construction or the removal, and because we can't afford to have a surveyor standing around. So,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
And it's not necessary as well.
Yeah.
They could set a bench.
Sure.
We could have them set a bench right on the bridge.
Right on.
If there isn't one there already, I'm not usually sets benches on the bridges when we build bridges.
Right on the abutment.
Usually.
I think there's one up above.
Steve, I can't hear you in the microphone.
Is that better?
I think so. Yours is far away too.
Oh.
We're discussing whether there's a benchmark on the bridge that can be used to set the staff gauge.
What we did is we surveyed by the railing on top, right above the gauge. I have an X there marked. And you can drop a tape from there down to there and measure it. So,
Okay, so that X has been set.
yeah, she set it
Beck-
for us last fall.
Okay,
And I think I wrote the paint there, how it reads right there.
if not, I'm sure Vicky would have those records too.
But she did measure the top of that gauge, can't call it gauge,
Staff gauge.
staff. She measured the top of that, and if we want to put something there and mark it right now so that when we raise it or lower it, we know what it is.
So-
Closer than dropping it.
Did she do that last fall, John?
Yeah, she did, I got folders on each one, but she did it last fall.
Well, we can verify that. But anyway, John will find that information for us, and that way, if we do have an accurate benchmark, then we can proceed with the idea of removing and replacing. That sounds good. Kind of anticipating the beta bus.
Looks like,
It's there.
Looks like it.
Yep,
It's here.
It's here. Oh, my gosh. I'd entertain a motion to recess for our field trip.
I move that we recess for a field trip.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. We are recessing.
Steve, will you come back?
We're coming back into session from our recess. So I know that Michelle wanted us to kind of do a listing of where we went and what we saw kind of thing. So why don't we just start at the Leland Dam Control Room? What did we see? And I guess I'm thinking that if we list topics that, we can say what we saw, but we can also list topics that we need to discuss.
Well,
Roof repair?
We saw the roof, and we saw the walkway. And next week, what we had put for a budget proposal was 66,600, 46,600 for the walkway replacement, and 20,000 for the roof repair. That was our request for Fund 805. And we didn't get it. So, and they didn't bring me in to chat about it, so I was a little confused. Interestingly enough, they had 10,000 in the proposed budget just as a placeholding number going into budget requests, and they didn't keep it. We did have a request to bump the utilities up to 6,000 from 3,000, and that made it. That was in. So part of it got in, but part of it didn't get in, and I wasn't called for discussion. So I'll beg for some money. We'll see if we get it. If we don't, we get it. We'll go for it next year, kind of thing.
Is there any reason to change the dollar amount?
I don't think so. It'll make sense to keep it the same. We got a quote from Rusty Friedel from Fisher for the walkway replacement at $38,800, and we added 20%, figuring that could be a potential increase for this season versus last season. So I think that's a pretty good number, and if we get the money, then we can discuss how we move forward. We might want to do one first and see how it comes out, and then try for one second. I don't know if we want to try for both at once or not. I know that the reason I mentioned Rusty Friedel is he was the straw boss for the crew that built the dam, and he worked for Gerace. And at a certain point in time, he left Gerace and went to Fisher, two big outfits that do dam work, and all of his crew went with him. And these are the guys that made it happen down here, and they not only finished on time working through the winter, they were a little bit under budget. So he's an outstanding person and organizer and worker. If perchance we were to do the walkway first, it would give Rusty a chance to eyeball the roof. And we could maybe squeeze them both at the same time, or get a good idea if we had enough money in the budget to do them both once all was said and done. But a lot of discussion will have to happen if we get the money. I know John wants to run the boards this way, and I want to run the boards the other way. And I'm going to talk to Rusty about the dewatering plan, and he put that together, and I'll bring that for the next meeting so everybody will have a look at it to see what that looks like. But anyway, so roof and walkway we looked at, and those will be discussion items if we get our money. Anything else?
well, we had an extended discussion about the lake level that's
Yes.
now being maintained, so I
Yes.
think that needs to be.
Yes, okay, I'm just gonna put lake level down. Jerry's been doing this for 40 years, a certain way, and I think we realized over the last two very dry years that a conservative strategy left the lake somewhat below court order. So we are carrying more water to be in the court order target window. And we need to discuss dam manipulation during weather events and all of that. Obviously, we need to have, I think, some kind of a recommendation for Jerry, and we have his back with the way it has to be done per se, and we just have to kind of talk that through with him. Anything else?
Just the risk on the lake level, since we're carrying more water now, we also have the possibility of the lake level exceeding the legal limit if we do start getting rainfalls or a wet summer, so, and we can't, there's a limit to how fast they can let water out, so it's something we need to consider.
Yeah. I'll put plus and minus, and with respect to weather events.
Would it be advisable to communicate to the general public who to talk to as far as the lake level? I know people, Dawn certainly knows everybody, but if there are other people that have concerns or questions, who should they really communicate with?
I'll put also with respect to communication. Correct, yeah, it's, our names are out there, so anybody in the Dam Authority would be fair game for someone to call up and have a discussion with.
And do we want that instead of them calling Jerry? That's what I wonder, if that should be a
Yeah,
point that we,
yeah,
that kind of let him do his work and let us do our job as
Agreed.
authority members, so.
yeah.
We don't want the
there's
frustration that
question-
he's.
Filter for Jerry, question mark. There are certain people that Jerry counts on to give him a call.
Input.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's, there's a contact person with the marina. If he's dumping water, and they're having trouble moving boats around because the river goes down, then he needs to hear from that person. And then there are people on the downstream side that have charter boats and whatnot, and if he's dumping a lot of water, does it make it difficult for them to get in and out? And, there's that consideration. So I know Jerry at times when we have, we went through those wet years, there were many, 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 many days where he went down like at 10 o'clock and opened it up to dump water. And he went back at 4 in the morning to pull it back up. So the marina had their water and it wasn't too rough downstream. Every night. He's been orchestrating between the people that have the needs, physically, and then he does get, the lake's too high, and then the lake's too low, and for years and years and years, he and I talk every week, several times, a lot of times, and I'll get calls and he'll get calls, and he said, well, I got 6 calls that were too high and 6 calls that were too low, so,
Just about right.
It must be perfect.
Figured he was about right. But in reality, when you have weather events and the lake goes above court order, then we're coming back to court order from it being too high. And during drought times, very likely to be coming up to lake level. So there's a ebb and flow. Anyway, anything else from the control room that we should be listing for discussion?
I didn't get the impression that there's any equipment that is in immediate need of repair. The redundancy with the motors, the pumps, the hydraulic system is, Jerry didn't communicate that there was anything that's a problem.
Well, the hoses, didn't you mention the hoses?
Yeah.
That was maybe the first thing you wanted, or was I?
Well, what's going on there, I'm just gonna put control room systems.
Okay.
We're approaching 20 years. And all of the things in the room have a lifetime. This, I've seen a lot of those systems on the farm, and basically on the farm, we run them until they don't work anymore. There have been discussions, John and the authority and whatnot, and Jerry, what kind of system should we be looking at? We certainly don't want to run it till it quits working. We need to discuss the concepts surrounding upkeep of systems. And I put control room systems. Should we be looking at replacing items? Should we be looking at removing all the seals and putting new seals in? What should we have on hand for the what ifs and all of that? And Jerry's done a fair amount of that already with the door, the escape door. That's a real what if. We've done a ladder to get out and do the greasing. The person that's doing that would have a harness on and a rope, so we're not going to let them get swept off into the river and have a problem. So we've done quite a few things there to make it safe and OSHA-approved type systems. And the whole concept of should we be replacing seals at a certain point in time versus waiting until we have something that doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's the idea there, and I just put control room systems in there. And the one guy that Jerry's been talking with is retired hydraulics engineer expert, and has been down in the room and looked at the system, and Jerry's provided him with this is the company and this is the kind, and so at some point we probably have that person come and chat about that system and the hoses and the cylinders, and just kind of get an idea if and when we should be thinking about pulling one off and going through it,
Okay.
that type of thing. Okay, let's go to the Narrows.
I think the issue with the Narrows is the calibration of the staff. It's been measured, appears to be off by 0.2, and that should be corrected.
So the staff gauge, I'm just going to put replacement. So that, I felt a lot better putting the Binocs on it, and some good suggestions came up. Garth, I think, just let's take a new staff gauge, and if it's truly surveyed in by Vicky at such and such at this point, let's put the new one in at the right spot, and that's what we'll read. I think that has a lot of merit. It looks to me like there's a pretty good piece of wood in that I-beam channel. And we'd have to inspect to make sure that it was solid and not going to move around and that kind of thing. So that'd be pretty easy, I think, to do, and we can talk about that. I'm thinking that a lot of these items will kind of prioritize on the 31st, and then ideally we'll know about the money then too. So we'll be able to have some movements on some of these topics. Okay. Should we go down to the gauge off Birch Point?
Well, it appears that calibration of the gauge there is off. And
Yeah, it's drifting for whatever reason.
we don't really know why at this
Yeah,
point.
it's not right. So calibration of sensor is really probably the main topic there, and the strategy and methodology will iron out. Anything else with regard to South Lake sensor? I'm going to put location and a question mark. We've gone from one agreeable owner to another agreeable owner, which is pretty fortuitous. I'm wondering if we shouldn't put another stake in somewhere. There are two DNR launch sites, one just up from Birch Point and then one across the lake, both of them well into the South Lake. And one or both of them, maybe we could take one of those steel stakes and set one at each location where it wouldn't bother anybody. We'd have to kind of think about whether or not we should talk to DNR or not. But if we have locations that are open to the public, it gives, say, Jerry a chance to carry his tape measure with him and, do a check, at such and such a time on such and such a day, this is what it was at this launch or that launch, without having to go in and knock on somebody's door, just as a methodology of doing a reading that is kind of keeping track of the sensor. Is our sensor wandering again, or is it still okay, that kind of thing?
One of the questions for John, if we were to drive a metal stake, a heavy-duty stake into the shoreline next to not the sensor pickup, but to the recorder, and we put a mark on that, it might tell us if when the water level goes up and down, compare that to the actual reading. Is that something that makes any sense?
You talking about Birch Point yet?
Well, any one of them, but Birch Point in particular.
Yeah, Birch Point has a stake there. I pointed it out to some. That one is there. There's no mark on it, but you can just step through it.
The top is surveyed in. The top of the stake is surveyed in.
Yeah.
And that's what you guys gotta have a motion to get
Sure.
somebody out there and check that. And if you wanna put a tape at the normal thing or a band, or something, just by going and looking at it, you can tell whether it's high or low. That one sticks above the water about 9 inches. Is that what you're asking?
Yes. I was thinking of a
Staff
calibrated
staff gauge.
staff gauge.
Good.
I'm going to put that down.
I wonder a little bit about our accessing that site maybe more, if we shouldn't have some sort of formal agreement with the landowner. I just wonder about insurance or, if anyone were to get hurt when they were out there. It sounds like you had a.
I didn't get hurt.
You didn't get hurt, but I'm just saying.
I took a shower, tetanus shot.
I don't know what and then maybe that would give Jerry an ability to go out there. I don't know.
I'll put contract question mark.
Yeah, I think
John,
you brought it
maybe
up,
you could-
John, so.
If you
yeah.
could supply that sample contract, that'd be great.
I got the one here for Crystal Lake.
We can make a copy of it.
Mr. Blackstone does lock up his gate when he's in California. I will ask him the question if we may have access when he's not in
State.
Michigan.
He has a passageway alongside that he doesn't lock. He locks the main gate.
Right.
And you can just walk
But
around.
You always walk in off to the side. You don't go there that often. But
I'll just ask him and see if he has any issue.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Well, one thing about a contract, it would protect us and it would protect him.
Yeah.
That's, I'm just wondering.
That's, it's not a bad idea. Okay, so I think we have our talking points. We have more than enough for the 31st. So I think we can probably include them all for that meeting on the 31st, and then we can prioritize them. And whatever we get to, and then put off to the next meeting. We'll probably have a feel for, we'll have to put set next date on that agenda too. We had gone to quarterly meetings, and we could just talk about the whole idea of meeting times on the 31st to see what we think and what makes the most sense for this group as far as when we would meet. But I think it's looking kind of optimistic on my part to say that we would be able to get the ball rolling in a couple different directions. Would be kind of nice on the 31st, and then we can let those balls roll and wait a little bit to meet again.
When does the budget get approved?
It gets approved late in the year, but the packets go out in June typically. Do we have a packet date yet?
Not yet, no, but it'll be
So,
June.
yeah, in June, everybody gets a packet. So we'll have a packet, and then we arm wrestle over what we think we ought to put in the budget, and then we make our recommendations with our best explanation and turn the packet in.
So we won't probably have to meet in June or July.
That's a good point.
We don't want to wait too long, but, well, we could decide
We'll
that
have to,
date in
we'll
May,
have to
May
think about that,
31st.
yeah. We'll probably, we might have a better idea by that time. And we can, in the past, we've fleshed out the ideas that would go in the budget and then pass the ball to a non-quorum committee that could hammer out the language. We wouldn't necessarily have to meet as a whole group. We could deputize a smaller group.
Okay.
So, I think we did pretty well. Brings us down to public comment. Seeing none, hearing none.
Oops, here he comes.
Oh, here we are, John Popa.
I guess one question is, you're gonna be meeting here at the end of the month. And one thing we wanted to have, do you wanna have that surveyed by then so that we can do some work? Did you pass a motion, to get Vicki?
I think we're pausing on all motions to the 31st.
Okay, now the budget, 2 years ago, when we, and this is just to refresh everybody's memory, 2 years ago, we came in front of the board and said we're gonna need between $300,000 and $500,000, and we spent a lot of time with the guy that built the dam and stuff, and we identified these big items, like what is it gonna take to dewater it, what is it gonna take to power wash that gate and paint it, all those hydraulics, and the guy in hydraulics lives on the south side of the lake there by Solon Township Park, and he's excellent. And we got them all together, and there was a big flap on whether we need to go through another assessment, because that court order lets you assess anytime you need it. And there was a lot of flapping. We filled this room with people, if you remember, that was against the assessment, and they said, this dam belongs to the county. We've had enough of them charging all the lake. So they then said, yeah, over the next 10 years, and that's what we laid out, a 10-year plan of what has to be done, it's only going to be about $50,000 a year, maybe. And they said that we've taken out of the budget. We don't have a line item for it. It gets taken out of the budget and puts that into that 805 or 908. And so to have them knock that out and say, well, it wasn't in the budget, and say, look at you guys. You said you're gonna take this out of the budget whenever you need the money. You guys own that. And how it got slipped by, or whatever words they want to use, or hopefully Steve can talk them into it. So you need some things that's gotta be done that can't wait. We put off this work for a while. I don't think it leaks that bad. It's my work, I mean, drips, and I like the idea that maybe the guy that would replace that, if it was, that replaced the walkway, would do it at the same time. But that walkway's got to be replaced. It was too cold out there to show you all the boards that are peeling up and rotten, but I got a big picture. I said, if one of you guys is gonna do the RFP, I got a big picture booklet of all that and some plans on how to go about it. And then next year's budget, we can talk about it, but we should get that thing ready to be water. And there's a good budget estimate on that, because we've gotta have we'll lift the gate up, put the braces on the side, clean out the holes, and get that thing in there, and at that time we can do a dry inspection. Do we have the holes? You're gonna put off till the end of the month, about going out
Yeah.
the survey?
If you could go back, John, and research those numbers that we brought in front of the board, maybe maybe you can
I
talk.
have all those numbers and you.
Yeah, why don't you talk to me, get those numbers together again, and I think that would be good, and then we can incorporate that in some of our discussion.
I have that contract here where they put those things. It looks like it was a contract between the Crystal Lake Association, and they must have used a DNR location. So I just looked it up here, I have a folder. And so it was a contract between Crystal Lake and DNR to use the property.
I'd like to see that too.
Well, I have it.
Yeah, okay.
But you can imagine, it went through the state, it's like 8 pages long.
Yeah, it would probably read pretty much the same for a private individual too, so just seeing that form would be great.
I don't think it was that hard to print one up. You can ask.
Well,
Cal.
it'd
I
have
thought
to-
it was a different one.
It'd have to go through corporate. Okay, all right. Thank you, John. Commissioner comments?
Thank you.
I think the numbers, John, might be a little high. I think it was $250,000, and I think it was over a 20-year span.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I think it was a 20, it was like 20 grand a year or something out of the, if you did it every year, thinking about can the county afford this kind of thing? And at that point in time, the board decided, rather than going through the process of a special assessment district, and I think the wording in the special assessment lake level law, I don't think you can stockpile money for projects. I think what has to happen is the project have to happen and the county pays for them, and then there's a process of assessing. So, but it's quite a process. You've got your 1,200 property owners, and you've got to get the treasurer's office involved, and you've got to get equalization, and all of the townships, like there's 6 townships, all of those township treasurers have to be involved to get the right assessment onto that tax bill. It's a winter tax bill. So it's quite a process. They decided that, well, it makes more sense just to do it out of the county budget. It's not a huge expenditure when you look at a 20-year span. Anyway.
A question, the last assessment was countywide.
No, the special assessment district for lake level is the riparian owners
Oh,
only.
okay.
However, the county ponied up half. The last 2 big things, it was a dam patch and a dredge, 900,000. Then it was fix the dam for around $1 million. Both of those, half was paid by the riparians and half by the county. So the precedent has been set where the county picked up half and the riparians picked up half.
Okay.
So I think that was pretty equitable from my point of view. And then you look at Lake Leelanau, that's the county. The Glen Lakes are on a court-ordered lake level also. And that went through a lawsuit, and the judge named a technical committee, which I'm on. And the technical committee was tasked with finding a water sharing plan. And that's where all the retirees around Glen Lake, Killen included, and there's a handful of really wonderful, wonderful people there that put this formula together, and the sensors and the formula and a water sharing plan, so that as we go through dry times, the lake suffers and the river suffer, they both suffer together. So it's, and the judge approved it, and it's been running that way for more than a decade with minor tweaks. But anyway, that's another court-ordered lake level. And they rebuilt the dam, but they didn't do, I don't think they did special assessment. I think they just went with the Lake Association ponying up. But anyway, that's a different situation down there than Lake Leelanau. That was my comment. I'd entertain a motion.
I motion that we adjourn.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.